Hey, what's up everyone? So I'm back at it on the front subframe here. I went and got some 3/16 plate and got my pieces cut out. You can see right here, cut two pieces out exactly the same, and I got them all cleaned up. And now I'm preparing to mark where the holes for the control arms are going. And the way I'm doing this, because the jig is spaced away from the frame like this, I've taken a piece of angle iron and clamped it to our pieces while it was sitting perfectly flat on the table. And then I just move it up here and make sure it's flush with the jig, flush with the frame rail, and that gives us our exact dimension for welding these pieces onto the frame rail here. And of course, we're gonna use a piece of 1-inch tubing as a spacer in between the control arm and the mounting plate. And that's gonna give us some adjustability in our suspension settings. And got our holes drawn out here. Gonna go ahead and pull this off and punch some holes through. Okay, well, I got them all cut out, got them all cleaned up, and got them all bent up. So this is the final result. And this is the other side. All we gotta do now is get them welded on here and come up with a coilover mount, which will sit in between here. And then we will pretty much be done with the front stub frame. So, time to turn on the welder. Control arm mounting plates welded on there, and it's pretty much done. The only thing really left to do is add the shock mounts or coilover mounts, but I'm not going to use the traditional Corvette mounting system. I'm going to go ahead and go with a standard eyelet style mount. So I'm going to have to mock up the suspension with the front control arm on here and install a coilover right here. And that'll give us the position that we're going to need exactly as far as the angle that the coilover is going to sit at up here. So we'll worry about that once I get some coilovers. And other than that, we're pretty much just waiting on the rear frame section so we can do the same thing, and then we'll be rolling. I'm back at it on the 29 Ford project here. I think the last time I left off was building the upper control arm mounts for the front subframe. I went ahead and finished those up. I got them welded on to our frame stubs and ordered some coilovers and some T-bar mounts from Q1A. I don't know how many of you know about suspensions for Corvettes, but if you want to get a halfway decent set of coilovers for a C5 or a C6, you're looking at least 2,000 bucks. And that's just out of the question for me. So I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to build a complete suspension setup with Q1A parts. It should run me somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 1,000, maybe 1,100 bucks, I would say total. That's 4 coilover shocks, 4 springs, and the T-bar mounts. Everything else we're gonna fabricate ourselves. So what I'm working on presently is coming up with the upper mount for the coilover, and then we'll pretty much be completely done with the front subframe. And I also have the rear subframe completely taken off of the transmission and the control arms. It's sitting up on my bench. I'm waiting for my frame section off of a C5 Corvette to come in so that I can make a jig for the upper control arm mounts for the rear as well. And that should be coming in on Tuesday. Today is Thursday. So first thing I've done is mocked up the coilovers. I've got them kind of zip tied to the control arm in the position that I want them in. And what I'm doing now is taking measurements of how long the brackets are going to be and how wide. And it looks like they're going to be somewhere in the range of 8 inches long and 4 inches wide overall. And we'll cut from there. So let me show you what I got going on. Back all tore up. You could also tell I cleaned my shop up really good. I had something like, let's see, 55 Chevy parts in here from that project, C5 Corvette parts from the Corvette in the garage, parts for the COE build, a whole bunch of stuff. And I kind of just rounded everything up and put it with each project, and now it's nice and clean in here and I can really focus on what I need to get done. Anyways, this is what we're working with in the front here. You can see I got all my hardware, got spacers, and this here is the T-bar mounts that I ordered off of Summit Racing. They come from Q1A. I think I have a part number for you here in my pocket for the exact fit, or not. Maybe it's up here on the workbench. That's the part number you're gonna need to mount Q1A coilovers to your lower control arms in the front, BAR350K. Right, so my plan for the upper mount here, you can see it's real tight. I've got equal amounts of clearance in between the sway bar here and also our upper control arm. And basically what I've done here, I take my little square and I measure how long it's got to be approximately from the bottom of the frame rail to the top of the coilover. And the way I'm planning on designing them, it's gonna come down and then it's gonna flare out, right? On both sides. And for figuring out the top section here, basically just measuring kind of like that to get an idea. That's how I got my 4-inch measurement. And I also used the square to square up the top of the shock mount with our upper control arm mount there to make sure that it's mounted properly. And now we're gonna go get some paper, cut out an 8x4-inch piece, and start cutting it up and figure out exactly what our mount's gonna look like. Okay, so this is what we're starting off with, an 8x4 rectangle. And essentially what we're gonna do is, I wish I had a pencil, but we're gonna start down at a point at the bottom of the frame rail and gradually come up, and then it's gonna flare out to over the top of the coilover to reach the eyelet and kind of loop back up. Hopefully it's a little bit beefier than the way I just demonstrated, but let's kind of take it over to the frame rails and see what we can come up with. All right, I'm not sure if this side is gonna be the same as this side yet. I have a feeling they will be. They might just sit a little offset to each other, if anything, by maybe 1/16 of an inch. But I know that this side is going to be exactly the same as the driver's side, so all we have to do is make one template. And let's see, so pretty much what I want to do, figure out where is parallel, perpendicular I guess it's called, but anyways. Well, that's pretty convenient. Okay. Got a nice little slot right in this square that holds the paper. Matter of fact, I'm gonna get a clamp to clamp the square onto the frame. Okay, so as I was saying before, I know that at the bottom of the frame rail, I'm gonna be starting off at a point. So what I'm gonna do right off the bat is cut our angle from the bottom point to the top of the spring hat at an angle just to kind of clear the spring a little bit. So I'm gonna take my Sharpie here and just mark where this spring hat kind of interferes with the paper. And then I'll grab a straight edge. I can't use that one since it's clamped in there. And draw a line and get this cut real quick. Okay, I ended up going a little bit higher than the spring hat, kind of I guess to the bottom of the eyelet here, which is gonna be just fine, and that gives us some clearance on the spring. We're still interfering a little bit though, but that's okay, because now we're just gonna take the Sharpie and kind of trace out where it interferes, so we can notch that out real quick. And maybe something just like that. Cut that piece out, and that should set us a lot closer to where we need to be. Let's see, it's already looking pretty close to something I've built in the past for a 55 Chevy. All right, yeah, we're definitely in the ballpark. I'm gonna have to move the square over a little bit to get us right where we need to be. But I could tell right off the bat that I'm gonna have to trim a little bit more off of the bottom here. We're looking at maybe, I would say, let's go like that just to see where that puts it. And go ahead and cut it again. Oh yeah, perfect. Now let's go ahead and move this square over an inch or two. go. Since we moved it over, we're now interfering with the spring a little bit again. Let me show you. Yeah, you can see it right there. The spring's hitting, so we'll go ahead and bring that back a little bit. Okay, well, just realized that I'm kind of a dumbass for thinking that it was going to be straight up and down with the frame rail, because as it mounts to the shock, it's going to actually run kind of diagonally. So we're still in good shape with our template here. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of trace out a little bit more to give us some clearance off of that shock, the top of the eyelet there, so that nothing interferes on full compression or fully extended. I think we're in pretty good shape here. I got it all trimmed up just the way I like it. I did have to notch it back here a little bit for the crown of the weld, but we'll just grind that down before we weld on our actual brackets that we're gonna make. And I did check it to the other side. The difference is so minimal that I'm not gonna have to alter the template at all. So we're gonna go ahead and take this piece of paper, start tracing it onto some steel. One thing I gotta start practicing is to clean up after myself in between each little step I take, and that way it won't be like a hurricane came through my shop every couple of days. I'm using to make these is the same thing I use to make the upper control arm mounts, which is 4-inch 3/16 bar, and comes in 20-foot lengths. I got two 10-foot sections because that's all that would fit in the back of my car. But basically I'm just going to trace all four on here, and that'll give me an idea of how long I need to cut the piece. Then we'll cut it, and then we'll cut each piece out on our bandsaw. Here's a little trick my neighbor taught me. Save little material. And I know some of you probably think, well, duh, that's a pretty obvious thing to do, but in the past I've gone like laid each one out exactly the same and wasted all this extra space. So one little tip, I used to use Sharpies, but they really suck for doing dirty work like this. But these things right here, they last a long time. The tip stays pretty sharp as long as you're not real rough on it, and it's really helped me out. So if you're having trouble with your Sharpies, switch over to these. They're worth it. I think I might have screwed that one up. Let's see if we can save it though. All right, I'm sure some of you who have been watching my channel know this is what I use to cut out most of my smaller parts, if I can fit them in there, because I really suck with the plasma cutter. My hand gets all shaky, and it's just more work cleaning it than it's really worth to me. And with this, I get it done pretty quick. And what we're gonna do is just throw these in here and get them cut out. Yeah, we're gonna have to plug it in first. All right, some of you might be wondering, what are all these little cuts that I've put into it around the pattern? Well, those are called relief cuts, and the reason why I do those is because the blade on the saw is not gonna twist very much before it snaps. And as you can see, we're cutting a lot of curves here, and that's really challenging with a bandsaw, with any kind of blade with any thickness like that, because it just, like I said, it won't bend. It just is gonna get hot and break. I've had it happen plenty of times. And this essentially just slows that down from happening. You go through with a rough cut, and then you kind of clean it up on the grinder. You'll see right now. All right, so as you can see, inside curves are a real pain. So It's a little bit choppy, but like I said, once we hit it with the grinder real quick, all that will clean up. As you can also see, outside curves are a lot more manageable because you can just keep cutting off the point that's created, and eventually you have a semi-round corner. So let's get the other 3 done, and then we'll move on to the next station. All right, we're over here at the grinding station now. Time to clean these things up a bit before we throw them on the belt sander for final finish. Let's get started. All right, I wish I did it before so you could really see all the little points that were left on the inside corners there, but you can see the grinder knocks it down within seconds. And now we're just going to throw it here on the belt sander to really get a smooth finish on this, and then we'll bevel off the edges, and then we'll figure out where the hole needs to be, and we'll be dang near ready to weld these on the car. I'd like to point something out real quick. In the past, I would consider this well beyond good enough. You can see there's just a few marks left from the grinder, but on this project and all projects going forward, I've decided that leaving little tool marks like that, little imperfections, is just not going to cut it for me. So I'm going to go ahead and keep sanding this until it's completely smooth, and then we'll move on to the next one. All right, so here's our template, and here are our 4 coilover mounts. Last thing we got to do before we weld them on, go over here and figure out exactly where the hole that's going to hold the coilovers go. So let's get that done. All right, this part is pretty simple. Probably see I already have a marker where it needs to be. We'll pull that out real quick. I'll probably have to grab my clamp, but basic idea is we're gonna figure out exactly where we want it. Yeah, we gotta grind this weld down before we can do anything. All right, I got one drawn on there. I think it's pretty centered, so we're gonna go ahead and get this drilled out and test fit it on both sides before we drill out any of the other ones. All right, I'm sure you know the drill already. Take my little measuring instrument and find the center of the hole. Take my punch and get ready to drill. All right, the one tool that I am still missing in my quiver is a good drill press. I have one in the corner of my shop, but it's too fast. It only works for wood, so I'm still using a hand drill. All right, moment of truth. Let's see what we got here. All right, I'd say we're in pretty dang good shape. Let me show you why. Whoops. Okay. The way that I wanted the hole to land was, man, it looks like the lens is all dirty. I'm sorry. Still having trouble focusing, but as you can see, it contours the outer edge of the bushing perfectly, and that's exactly what I wanted. So we are in good shape. Let's go ahead and get the hole traced out on the rest of them, and actually let's test it on the other side first. All right, there it is. That's all 4 of them. Got a 1/2-inch bolt pushed through them, and they all line up pretty well. So we're about ready to get these tacked on. But first we got to clean up the frame rails with sanding disc. Well, let's see right there. All right, I went ahead and got the frame rail all cleaned up. I'm getting ready here to get these pieces tacked on. Got a 1/2-inch bolt. Got a spacer. I have my shock spaced exactly to the correct ride height that it's supposed to be at, which is 13.5 inches. It actually has a range of 13.5 to 12.5. I'm never gonna wanna raise the car up, but I could possibly wanna lower it a little bit. You never know. So we're gonna go with 13.5. My measurement before I throw some tack bolts down here. Yeah, 13.5. All right. That'll hold for now while we jump over to the other side and get it all tightened up. Okay, so I'm gonna call it a night for now, but as you can see, it's looking awesome. I'm super stoked with the way it's coming out. That extra effort I put in to clean off all the tool marks really shows, even though it probably won't when it's all said and done, because it's gonna get painted, but I'm happy. I'm gonna go ahead and finish welding it tomorrow. I gotta go eat some dinner, but hopefully I have enough things to do to be able to make another video tomorrow as well. I'll catch you guys then. Bye.